Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
My name is Jeff.
I am Iron Man.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Wow.
Mr. Feeney? Mr. Feeney!
I'll swallow your soul! I'll swallow your soul! I'll swallow your soul!
Swallow this.
Hello there.
Loud is not allowed. Now you listen to me, mister. I work for a living. And I mean real work, not writing down gobbledygook.
Say, would you like a chocolate-covered pretzel?
Come on, flip the pickle, Morty. You're not gonna regret it. The payoff is huge.
That's what she said.
Welcome to my world, bitch.
And now, ComiCulture Radio, with your host, Kevin Caldwell.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kevin. Welcome back to ComiCulture Radio. Nerd musings from beyond the former fringe. It is a lovely Saturday afternoon. We have an interview with Richard Steven Horvitz today. You might know him as the voice of Zim from Invader Zim. We're going to have that start us off, so we'll get into that right now.
Hi, so this is Kevin. You're listening to ComiCulture Radio. I'm here with my co-host Brandon, and we're pleased to have Mr. Richard Horvitz on the phone. Richard is a prolific voice actor who has had many roles over the years, but is known for his role as Billy on The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Alpha 5 from Power Rangers, Daggett Beaver from the Angry Beavers, and most notably Zim from Invader Zim. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'll start things off. When did you discover you had a talent in manipulating your voice?
Well, contrary to a lot of my voiceover peers, I didn't start out in voiceover. I was an on-camera actor from the time I was about 10 years old. I started doing television commercials and stage and equity theater. And then around the 80s, I had done a string of teen films. Most notably was a movie called Summer School with Mark Harmon and Kirstie Alley, directed by Carl Reiner for Paramount. And about 1988 or so, there was a Writers Guild strike that was just, financially devastating. And at the time, I had a friend who said, you got an interesting voice. Have you ever thought about getting into voiceover? And I knew nothing about voiceover. I just didn't know anything about it. And at the time, my commercial agent shared an office with a voiceover agent. And I walked over to that side of the office and said, hey, I want to do voiceover. What do I do? And she said, well, you need a demo reel. Back then it was, reel-to-reel tape. And so I went out and I made one. And my first month there, I booked 3 radio commercials. And I thought, oh, well, this is easy. But turns out that was the last time I worked in that year in voiceover. And then it took me about 5 years to break into animation. But once I discovered animation, that's when I realized this is where I wanted to be working, because it closely resembled on-camera work, because you got a different script every week and you got to work with some amazing people.
Yeah, absolutely.
How has voice acting changed your life?
Well, it's been nice. It's been a secure living for the last 30 years, so it changed my life on that level. I've got 3 kids and a beautiful wife, and so it's helped with that. Our oldest just graduated from college. Our middle one is in college, and our third one is heading to college in another 2 years. As far as it gave me a community of great people that I get to work with and see regularly, in addition to traveling with, because we do so many of these pop culture conventions around the world.
Yeah. So how did it feel returning to Invader Zim after all these years?
It was weird. It was a little anxiety inducing, because we hadn't all worked together in, they say it's been 12 years since we were on the air. That's true, but it had been 17 years since we had actually all recorded together. I wasn't worried about that, because we're all the cast and the crew are all still friends and have maintained a close relationship over the years. But the anxiety was more about, you know, we had this fan base that had come to, you know, expect a certain type of humor, nostalgic lines, etc. And so I was, you know, and I'm older. My voice is a little bit gruffer than it was, you know, almost 20 years ago. So I was a little nervous about it, but once we got into the studio, it was like we'd been there just last week. And if you haven't seen the final product, Enter the Florpus, it was great. It's just like a giant epic episode.
Yeah, absolutely. When did you find out that the revival was happening? Like, where were you when you got that call?
Well, you know, there had been rumors of another season for a long time, but there was always something that precluded that from happening. You know, Jonan wasn't on board, or Nickelodeon wasn't on board, but then Jonan was on board and they weren't. And so for years, rumors abounded that there was going to be some sort of Zim something. But I remember specifically that Ricky, who plays Gurr, knew before I did, and Ricky and I are very close. We travel together frequently for conventions. And Ricky said, I know something, but it's top secret. And so I was at the convention when Ricky mentioned it to me. So that's how I found out.
Yeah, with that word top secret, did you kind of get the idea that you knew what it was?
Especially if Ricky was telling me that, yes. But at the same time, I didn't put too much credence into it at the time because I'd been, you know, excited about possibilities before, but Ricky was fairly certain this was going to happen. And at one point, I really knew it was going to happen because probably 6 or 7 months prior to the actual announcement, where we did the teasers for Nickelodeon, those like 30-second just, you know, black screens that said coming soon. Jonan had called me and said, hey, I got this great idea, and he started to tell me the whole story for the movie, and it was so vivid in his mind as he explained it to me that I went, okay, this is going to happen. So it was around 6 months prior to the actual announcement that I really thought, yeah, this is going to happen because he's excited about it. And if Jonan's excited about something, then that's always a really good sign.
Yeah, definitely. If the reception is positive, would you be open to returning for another movie or even a continuation series?
Well, absolutely. There's no doubt I've always wanted. I felt that there was so much to accomplish. We had so many great plans with the series that we just never got to fulfill. I prefer a series to another movie simply because that's more work and more money for me. But I definitely would like to do a series. The thing with the movie is that there's so much packed into the movie. I mean, it's overloaded with music and effects and voices and shouting and colors and all that stuff. Compared to the series, I'd like to kind of bring some of the episodes back down, you know, a little bit more grounded like we did with a lot of the ones in our original run.
Yeah.
Moving away from Zim for a bit, but I do got to say I did get to catch it the day that it actually came out, that it aired on Netflix, and I got to say it was fantastic. But would you consider Alpha 5 from Power Rangers to be your big break in the industry?
No, not in the slightest. Because the way that came to be was, you know, first of all, I had a friend who was editing the show in an offline edit bay. Like one night I got a call at like 8 at night, and he says, listen, I'm editing this I'm doing this edit on this show that this guy just bought from Japan. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. It's not going anywhere. Would you just come in and do a temp track? They need a voice of a robot. And I went, sure. And I went in there and I saw it. And, you know, at the time I hadn't come up with I yet, which is kind of the catchphrase. All it was which is the same line over and over again. Zordon, the Power Rangers are in trouble. Or Zordon, there's trouble in Angel Grove. You know, it was just that sort of thing. You know, he was a neurotic robot, which was right up my alley. And, you know, for that show, I never worked with the cast except for the voice actors. I would go in, I would talk when the lights were on, and I had no way of knowing, you know, how big that show was going to be. So I wouldn't say it's my big break because most people don't even realize I did the voice of Alpha 5. I would say that my big break into domestic animation, prelay is the Angry Beavers. And for me, I think my whole voiceover career took off from. And at the same time, I was doing a lot of video games at the time that started to a lot of the stuff I've done hasn't really been a huge commercial success. But they do garner a lot of cult following fans, which is predominantly like Psychonauts is another one that's coming out this year. It's Psychonauts 2, which was a video game that, again, not a huge commercial success, done by Tim Schafer, Tim was a fan of Invader Zim, which is why I ended up doing the role of Raz in the game. But that game had such a public wanting for more for many years that he did a fig fundraiser for it, and they got $6 million in the first 2 weeks. Not even the first week. First week they were up to $6 million on that one. And that's coming out sometime this year, hopefully, and it's really good.
Yeah, I've been really looking forward to Psychonauts. It was one of my favorite games as a kid, so as soon as I knew number 2 was coming out, I was like, yes, finally.
Yeah, it's fun. I really had fun recording that one. That's another one that I just fell right back into after so many years. It just was like that one. That one, was always a real fun one for me to work on because that one's just no yelling. There's no like, oh my God. It's all like, come on, we have to do this. Sasha. It's just my voice younger,
Yeah.
Right. What do you find most fun about being both a live action actor and also a voice actor?
It's funny. Being a live action actor is a lot of fun, but it was more fun when I was younger. When I was a kid and doing it, there was just 3 networks. And so you could do a commercial, and you knew that everyone saw that commercial if they were watching All in the Family that weekend or that week, or they were watching a show. Because at the time, everybody in America watched the same shows at the same time. And so that was the water cooler conversation. So if you were in a commercial as a kid back then, that everyone saw that commercial, so it helped you to gain some notoriety a lot quicker. So the on-camera stuff still gains you notoriety, but what it used to lead to as a kid or when I was younger was you would do that and people would recognize you. You'd be in their collective conscience. The next thing you know, you're guest starring on a TV sitcom, and then the following season you're auditioning for the pilot season, and you get a pilot, and hopefully the series goes. And it seemed a lot more, by the book, ABC. Now there are so many outlets, so many places that you have to try to drive traffic to. I think that the rewards on a financial and notoriety basis in on camera is a lot harder than it used to be. As far as voiceover is concerned, voiceover, you can get a lot of notoriety for these characters, but not necessarily really anyone know my name just by my name or seeing me. In fact, if you look at a lot of the reviews, Invader Zim gets a lot of great reviews, but only a few of them really just, credit the voice actors. They'll say like, Zim, say my name, Richard Steven Horvitz, and I don't even use my middle name really, but that's what it's listed as at SAG. But that's kind of a joint effort. But like I did a small part in Crazy Stupid Love. Just a little, like, you blink and you miss me type of thing. And more people knew me for that in a minute than any of my voiceover work. It's weird. The power of motion pictures is amazing. But it's all kind of beginning to collide. Universes are colliding because now movies, especially if they're independent or small or rom-com, they're on Netflix now or Amazon. And if you're in the movie theaters, it's because you're doing, an epic Avengers movie or, some X-Men or something. So, so I don't know if that answers your question, but I enjoy both of them equally, but the work that the time that I spend on a set is much longer than the time I spend in the booth, and I thoroughly enjoy the time in the booth.
Right. What would you consider to be most difficult part of being a professional voice actor?
The most difficult part. It's a very good question. I think it's highly competitive, but then everything is highly competitive. But I have a saying, it's not my job to compete.
Right.
My job is to play pretend and play pretend fully. The total definition of what I do. So I would say that the hardest part is, sustaining the opportunities and, continuing to book the jobs. I think that's, I think most, my friend, I think it was my friend Maurice LaMarche said, or maybe it was Rob Paulson, one of the two, after they had won, 2 Emmys for Pinky and the Brain. One of them said, it's the only part of the industry where you can win multiple Emmy awards for voice acting, but you still have to audition with everybody else for the job.
Right.
So, I think the one thing that I think is sad about voice acting is that people don't look at it as acting. They'll often say to me or my other friends, I know you had Carlos on a couple of weeks ago. Carlos and I were just at a convention together. Carlos obviously does on camera as well because he does Reno 911, et cetera. But we often get asked, do you still act? Or do you miss acting? And it's like, no, we still act. In fact, Tom Kenny said one of the funniest things I ever heard. Because I was talking to him saying, are you, do people continue to ask, like they ask me, or do you still do on camera, or do you miss that, or are you still an actor? That's basically what they're asking. Are you still an actor? And Tom has the best line ever. He says, whenever someone says that to me, I always say, no, I took a few years off to become a global icon.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the best thing ever, Pamela Adlon, same thing. She's got better things now and has done a bunch of things, Louie and a bunch of other shows for a long time. But, she won her Emmys for King of the Hill. And so to this day, she's very, true and honest and remains, part of the voiceover community.
Yeah. Is there another character you wish you could revisit? Being from Oregon, I've always been partial to the Angry Beavers. In my head, either Daggett or Norbert is the actual beaver on the Oregon state flag. So is there another character you'd want to redo?
Yeah, well, it's funny because people often ask me which of your characters is your favorite character that you've done. And for me, it's really hard to pick one because, so much of yourself goes into those characters that you love playing in each of those worlds. But the one character that I think is the closest to my personality is Daggett from the Angry Beavers. There's this one episode called My Bunny Guard where the beavers start getting threatening letters like we're being stalked, and so we hire a bodyguard who just happens to show up. And it's this big bunny, and he talks like he's from New York, and he's a big bunny, right? The thing I loved about that show is that whoever the guest was and whatever voice they were doing on the show that week, my character Daggett, always started talking like they talked, And so in that episode, Daggett's like, what'd you do it for, bunny? Because he realized that it was the bunny that was actually sending the threatening letters. But the moment that nails Daggett on the nose for me and is so me is when Norbert goes, hey, Bunny, you didn't have to do this. We would have been your friend anyway. And the bunny goes, you're just saying that because you don't want me to be upset or something like that. And Daggett just goes, yeah, so? That is so me. Yeah, so?
Right.
Yeah.
On that same note, if you had to do it over again, would you make any changes to any of your characters' personas?
Well, that's an interesting one. There are moments when I'm watching Billy on Billy and Mandy where I watch and I go, I wish I had said that more clearly because a lot of my Billy stuff was always, and it's just like very just all energy. And sometimes I go, I didn't hear that line. I think I would have liked to have heard that a little bit more. But, you kind of follow this play thing that I was talking about, and I play big and I play I play loud, big, and just very animated. And in a lot of animation, they don't want that. They want it grounded. They want, Warner Brothers wants real. You hear about this all the time. Real. We want real and real down, grounded stuff, which is great. But what it doesn't take into account is that there are people who are animated by nature. I happen to be animated by nature. I'm loud. I'm on. I'm funny. That's just how I am. Jim Carrey is a perfect example. Robin Williams was a perfect example. Jason Alexander are perfect examples of people who are animated by nature. That if they were starting today, they would say, "No, he's too over the top. No, too over the top. He's not grounded enough." Yet Jim Carrey and Robin Williams, and Jason Alexander, and everyone else you can think of didn't stop doing what they do.
Right.
And, people found them, and there'll be some jobs we're right for and other jobs we're not right for. I'm not really in the Warner Brothers universe, even though I was on Static Shock and played a very serious character named Jimmy, who in that episode brings a gun to school, which at the time was really just shocking. And I was actually submitted for Emmy nomination for that one. And that was a very grounded performance, as they would say. So, to do anything different, I don't know. I tend not to try to look back too much.
Right.
I think it is what it is.
When you did Son of the Mask, I noticed that you shared your role with Bill Farmer. Did you get a chance to meet him, or did you actually previously know him?
Bill and I have been dear, dear friends for 20-plus years. I love Bill, and he and I used to perform together regularly in sketch comedy. We did, he played George Burns, and I played Gracie Allen. Say goodnight, George. And so we did George and Gracie for years together. We're very close. We're very good friends. The reason we shared that is because that was a really hard voice to do, and basically what they wanted us to do is they wanted us to work all the really manic scenes, like when the dog's being, pulled through the stairway and all that stuff.
Right.
And so I couldn't speak anymore because I had blown my voice up, and then Bill would come in and he would do more, and then Bill would take a break and I would do more, and then they blended our voices together to play Otis the dog.
That was fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you. It was a lot of fun. I've done a lot of that. I did a movie years ago, just voiceover on Thin Red Line for Terrence Malick, and there's a scene where a soldier is shot and he's like floating down the river after he's been shot, and he's screaming. And so they took me and a couple of other guys up to a place called Castaic Lake so they could record it outdoors. And we just literally screamed in pain and horror until we couldn't anymore. And the next guy would step up and he would do it. And the next guy would step up. And then by the time they had all of us completely hoarse and probably nodes on all our vocal cords, they blended it together to make one voice. So,
right.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that goes on.
So there's been a huge resurgence in the popularity of nostalgic 90s cartoons. Obviously, we talked about how I interviewed Carlos about Rocco a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is there a property outside of the ones that you've been involved with that you'd like to see rebooted in some way?
Of my own properties or of any property?
Outside of your own properties.
Outside of my own property. Yeah. Beavis and Butthead, which we saw one season of, which was great. Mike Judge did, then it was Mike Judge's Beavis and Butthead, because that was the whole point of that extra season, is that when it was on MTV, it was just MTV's Beavis and Butthead, but, Mike Judge didn't get the credit or the deal that he deserved on that, so he went back to make that right. I loved that season, so I would love to see more Beavis and Buttheads. I think that show was just excellent and way ahead of its time, and made commentary that, opened the way to a lot of the things that we do in animation today, was thanks to Beavis and Butthead.
And I think without Beavis and Butthead, we wouldn't have gotten King of the Hill, so we have to give it credit for that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That is true.
So
we wouldn't have gotten Hank, that's for sure. Although Hank is very close to Mike, so.
Right.
Yeah, and Hank.
Well, it was
are they the same person? I don't know.
Yeah. Good question.
So, Billy West, another prolific voice actor, has been outspoken about celebrities being chosen over career voice actors for roles. I just wanted to get your take on that. Part of me understands why you'd want to insert Brad Pitt being here to a project, but Why are those people chosen over people who've made their career out of voice acting?
Well, I mean, the answer to that is because it's simple. It's, you attach someone to a project and you're going to sell the project. You're going to get a ton of money because it's, without a doubt, even if it sucks, it's going to make its money in foreign sales. So to that end, I love Billy. Billy and I have been very dear friends for many, many years also. I have a different take on it. My take is this. Well, I think there's a lot of on-camera actors who are used to just selling a line with a look. That doesn't translate to animation. You have to be able, as Billy says, it's Billy's quote, we have to create these worlds in our minds, in our imaginations, and then throw them up in Technicolor on the microphone, because the artists have to draw what we're doing. So if they need to transition, you can't just make a look and capture that on digital. Like for Billy, there was a lot of and with Zim, it was a lot of that helped with transitions, because you're playing as you would play on a playground. But in regards to how I feel about celebrities doing, these voiceover roles, I don't mind it, because it's like being angry that, Henry Ford invented the car. He created a lot of work and a lot of cottage industries for the rest of us. So if you look at something like Kung Fu Panda, Jack Black doesn't do that series. Mick Wingert does, and so that's work for him. And then they're not going to do all the games, and they're not going to do all the temp tracks, and they're not going to do all the toys, and they're not going to do all the ADR. And so, I mean, they're not going to do the series. So it creates other work. So, I can't get mad at it, because it's the nature of the beast. I mean, I don't see why it would be any different. We would feel any different because, they hire Brad Pitt over, say, Ed Norton or vice versa. It's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Yeah.
Do you enjoy going to conventions a lot, and how many a year do you attend on average?
I do enjoy conventions. I enjoy them immensely. It's a lot of fun. You get to interact with the fans, and you get to see what they like, because most of the time we're just in a dark booth laughing for each other. But when you realize it really touched people's lives, and that's something that I mentioned on Rob Paulson's podcast, was that one of the things you realize is that you think to yourself, what am I contributing to this world, because I'm having so much fun and I'm getting paid to do this? I mean, am I contributing in any way? And then when you're at a convention, someone says, I just went through cancer treatment, and the only thing that would make me smile was watching your shows, or you helped me through a really rough time in my life when I was depressed. Or one of the things that always moves Ricky Simons and me is that we get a lot of soldiers that'll come up to our table, and they'll say, they're all very polite. Sir, I just want you to know that I was in, such and such battalion in Iraq or Afghanistan, and I was in combat, and we would always watch your show before we went into combat. We would laugh, and then after we came back from a horrific fight, the only thing that we could do to try to get our sense of, humor and laugh again was to watch your show. I mean, that literally makes us cry when we hear things like that. I mean, that is what I love about the conventions. As far as how many, it depends on the year. For a long time after the series was canceled, I only did a few conventions a year, but then it became, kind of a desired thing to have the cast there. And so I think one year, Ricky and I together did about 15 to 19 in 1 year.
Wow.
Which was really hard, because, I mean, you would not even unpack. You'd land, you'd be on the plane again Thursday, and plus trying to work in between. But now I think I'm down to about 9 a year right now. Hopefully, I think the movie will garner some other offers, which is nice, But, the thing is, when I started doing conventions, and literally I started when Billy West urged me to start doing them. Billy, you said to me, and this is the truth, he said, back then no one was doing conventions. They weren't going to do conventions. It was, beneath them. And Billy leaned over to me one day and he goes, "You just watch, Fishy. One day everyone will be doing it." And the fact of the matter is that these conventions used to be nostalgia conventions. Like the Munsters were there, and Leave It to Beaver, and Gilligan's Island, and all that was nostalgia. But now, it's current stuff. You see Jason Momoa at conventions. You see whatever the Game of Thrones people at conventions, and that was current. You see everyone that's in a current thing going on. Because, after Comic-Con, the studios and the networks realize, wow, this is a great marketing tool, and we don't have to pay as much as we do in advertising. All we have to do is get them to show up.
Right.
So, so it's a little bit different. The convention scene is very much saturated, and it's also very much different than when I first started doing them.
Right. What characters or character would you say you're asked to act out the most when meeting the fans?
Oh, without a doubt, Zim. People have their favorite lines. I mean, there's a lot of really great lines in Invader Zim that people want. My favorite is, "Girl, I was there baking in the soap." But I also like ones like, "I have a mighty need," or "My business is done." So, I mean, there's a lot to draw on from that show. But a lot of people like Billy from Billy and Mandy, and that they want me to quote over and over again, "Destroy us all! Destroy us all!" And that gets
there it is.
Yeah.
Love that episode.
Yeah. We actually recorded that whole thing. It wasn't looped. That, "Destroy us all! Destroy us all! Destroy us all! I'll take the chicken! Destroy us all!" I mean, I went on and on and on.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, if you hadn't gone in the show business, live action or voiceover, what do you think you would have done with your life?
Oh, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one. I've always been a fan of history, so I think I probably would have probably done something with history. I might have become an attorney or a teacher, because I teach now, and I have a really huge student base for voiceover, and I've been teaching voiceover for over 20 years now, and my classes are always really full, and it's a lot of fun. But I think I'd probably have gone into teaching of some sort, or something that had to do with history. Maybe I would have become like a history professor or something.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't know that you actually gave lessons as well. That's really great to hear.
Yeah, I do. And if people are interested, they can find out about them at Richard Horvitz Classes, plural, @gmail.com.
Richard Horvitz Classes @gmail.com.
Correct.
Perfect. So, are there any roles that you passed on that you regret in retrospect, if any?
That I passed on that I regret. I usually tend to forget about the ones that I passed on, although I haven't passed on a lot of them. There aren't any that I regret. I mean, there's certainly ones that we all auditioned for that we wished we had gotten. Like, I would have loved to have done SpongeBob. That would have been nice. But nothing. I really have very few regrets. I've had a few, but nothing when it comes to my voiceover career. I've been very fortunate that the creators that I've worked with over the years have understood the way I work, and they let me improv a lot, and they let me just go. And that's always that's just the most freedom you can have playing, and that's what I like to have. And as a result, I'm friends with everyone that I've worked with. Every creator I've worked with, I'm still dear friends with. And if they have other projects they're working on, like if you look at Tim Schafer, I've been in almost every single Tim Schafer video game since Psychonauts, and so I like that aspect. But no regrets.
Yeah.
No regrets.
Right. Do you have any major upcoming roles that you can fill our listeners in on?
Well, let's see. Like I said, the Psychonauts game will be coming out shortly. I have a show on Cartoon Network that's coming out soon, where I play a villain. What a surprise. And I've got some episodes of Loud House that I'm in. I do quite a few roles on that show. What else? Destroy All Humans is coming out again. But that was news to me. That was news to me when I heard about Destroy All Humans. I was at a convention and people go, "Are you going to be in the new Destroy All Humans?" I'm like, "What? I don't even know about new Destroy All Humans." And then another person comes up, and then another person. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I Google it, and I call my agent, and apparently at E3 they said that they were remastering the original, and there was going to be a new level in it, and they're redoing it and bringing it up to date, and it was a big buzz, but they were just going to take our original voice tracks, our original voice tracks, and put it on the game. And then they also they have a level that we recorded way back when that they never did in the game. So I was a little upset about it because, one, no one told us, and we're the lead voice actors in it, and two, we don't get anything else. It's not like they pay us again for the game. So, I mean, in a movie, if they re-release something, you get paid again because you get residuals, but not in video games. So.
Yeah. It's really interesting that you said they just wanted to use the original tracks, because I remember when they redid Crash and Spyro, they redid every single line, so I don't see what the difference would be. I'm not in the industry, so I couldn't really answer that, but it's just silly to me.
When we did Ratchet and Clank, which I'm also in, it's one of my favorite franchises. They redid the whole first Ratchet and Clank, the original. They upgraded it, they changed it, and we re-recorded the lines. So I played a character I wasn't even in the original one. That's one of my favorite stories actually of ever. I'm a huge fan of Insomniac games. I'm a huge fan of Ratchet and Clank, and I had been hired to do another game years ago. And when I got there, I saw this poster that they had, and it was all the Ratchet and Clank things. And I'm like, oh, my God, you do Ratchet and Clank? Yeah, I go, that's my favorite game. I've played it over and over again. And they're like, now what's your favorite part? I said, well, this weapon's good. This one's not. This one works. Game one, it took too long to get the bolts to get the Rhino. I like the bounce gun, all that stuff. And they were so impressed that I was such a fan of the game that I was in every Ratchet and Clank game since that.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, so I just love that franchise.
Who have been some of your favorite voice actors you've gotten to work with, past or now, that you've gotten to meet?
Well, currently, I love working with my usual crew. I love everyone on Invader Zim. I love Ricky Simons. I love Melissa Fawn, Andy Berman, Jonan. I just love that crew, but I've worked with everyone, and so I love working with Billy. I love working with Rob Paulson and Maurice LaMarche. I love working with, and Greg Delisle, of course. And who else? There's so many. James Arnold Taylor. James Arnold Taylor.
Right.
Yeah, you name them, I'll tell you if I've worked with them.
Have you ever met Tara Strong?
I know Tara very well. I knew Tara when she came to from Canada here, and I was doing a series I was doing Angry Beavers, and they brought her on, and I literally spent the whole day with her. I guess I don't know if we were in an audition together where they were auditioning, both of us, and she was just new to the scene. And then the next time I saw her, she came on Angry Beavers, and she'll never let me forget this. And I said, oh, it's nice to meet you. She goes, nice to meet me? We spent an entire day together. You don't remember it? I was mortified. But, yeah, Tara and I are very close. She's a very good friend.
Yeah,
how about John DiMaggio?
Awesome.
John and I did, John DiMaggio and I did El Tigre together and a bunch of shows, and I did his movie, I Know That Voice. So, yeah, I like John a lot.
That was a good movie.
Yeah, I love that documentary. It was great. So much insight.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I want to touch base on Zim one last time. Do you have any favorite episodes that immediately come to mind with Zim?
Yeah, I really like three of my favorites are I love Rise of the Zit Boy, because that has my favorite line in it. Grr, why was there bacon in the soap? I love Walk of Doom. Walk of Doom is one of my favorite ones. And I love Planet Jackers. But, there's so many, I obviously love, Dark Harvest, because that one is really very good and very scary. It actually has the elements when he's running across the floor at the top, and you don't see him, you just see the tiles of the floor. It has that kind of shining element of, where's he going to pop up? Where's he going to show up? But those are probably my favorite episodes, those 3. But there's so many good ones. I'm not a fan of the ones I'm not in.
Easy to say.
Oh, yeah, although they're funny. They're funny episodes. I think Chicken Foot is very funny, and Game Slave is funny. But I miss the ones I'm not in.
Yeah. So we just have a couple more questions, and these ones are just potpourri, completely absurd. Feel free not to answer them, but just know that by not answering, we're going to have to assume what your answer would have been. Who was your childhood celebrity crush?
Childhood celebrity crush. Oh, wow. Yeah, Barbara Feldon, Agent 99 on Get Smart.
Oh, wow. Okay. And she was played by Anne Hathaway in the reboot, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I hated the reboot. I hated it.
I don't think I've even seen the whole thing.
I have major criticisms about movies. I'm like, first of all, I watched Avengers Endgame, and I cried. It was such a great ending to that. I loved it. But the problem with the movie of Get Smart is that in the movie Get Smart, they make Steve Carell as Maxwell Smart. They make him like he's just a nerd. He's an accountant that's just a nerd. Maxwell Smart was never that. Don Adams as Maxwell Smart was suave, debonair. He dressed nicely, and 99 loved him from the moment she met him in the series. In the movie, Anne Hathaway doesn't like him. He has to convince. She finally likes him. I didn't care for it. Did not care for it.
So what will we catch Richard Steven Horvitz watching on TV on a late Saturday night?
Oh man, I'm like a binge watcher. So I love my son and I were watching the IT Crowd. An old show with Matt Berry that I loved. I watched Fleabag, which I also love. I love Succession on HBO right now. I love Better Call Saul. I love watching TV. That's a hard one.
Did you see the teaser for El Camino, the new Breaking Bad movie?
Yes, I did. Yeah, and he looks so different. His hair's longer. Yeah, his hair is totally different. I'm excited to see it. I've just rewatched Breaking Bad for like the 3rd time, which I just streamed that over and over and watched that over and over again.
Yeah,
I love The Sopranos.
Yeah, you can just keep going on it.
It's brilliant, especially like The Sopranos, which I watch religiously. I think that's probably in my top. Those are probably my top 3 shows of all time. I love Breaking Bad. I love The Sopranos, and I love Mad Men. But with The Sopranos, that was a weird one because I watched that when it was on, but there would be years that would go by between seasons, and so you would forget who everyone was. You would forget like who was who and where we left off. But when you watch the Soprano episodes back to back to back, you realize how tight that story was. I mean, there was nothing that was left unresolved.
Yeah, except for that final scene, but that's a different story for another time.
I have my opinion on the final scene, and it's like it's set in stone. Tony Soprano was dead, so they killed him, and my reasons are 2. One, just an episode or 2 before, he and Bobby are out on the lake, and Bobby just casually mentions, I wonder what it's like when you die. I think everything just goes to silence.
Oh, yeah.
That happened. And 2, everything prior to Tony was from Tony's point of view, but after that, it switched to Meadows' point of view, and that was it.
I never thought about it that way. That's some great insight.
Yeah. So I'm sure he was killed. There's no doubt. And that's the sad part. When we lost James Gandolfini, I was just mortified because, like everyone else, I love reunions.
Yeah.
The reunions I don't like, though, and this is why I'm so proud of the Invader Zim movie, The Enter the Florpus. The reason I'm so proud of that is because that episode is just like one giant epic episode of Invader Zim, and we don't play on nostalgia at all. There are certain things you'll remember, but it's its own movie that can stand alone, whether you've seen it or not, the series. But the things like the Get Smart reunions are a perfect example. You know, it hasn't been on for 20 years, and you come back and you go, why is this corny? Why does this seem really bad? They don't have it anymore. And the reason is because they left us our consciousness 20 years earlier. Then they come back and they're doing the exact same humor, jokes, and life that they were doing 20 years ago, as opposed to evolving. Because we've grown up, times have changed. Why haven't they? The only reunion that works because they hadn't changed, and that's what they played on and why they made it a parody for the most part, was the Brady Bunch movie, which was brilliant. Because that's what made that funny. They didn't change, but we were aware that the world around them had changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could answer this as Billy, I would be really greatly appreciated. Who would win in a fight, Batman or Iron Man?
Well, I think Iron Man would win, but he's not really a superhero, and neither is Batman. They're more vigilantes. Yeah, I don't think that vigilantes are superheroes. What does Batman have? Money and brains? Well, what does Iron Man have? Money and brains. So if you're saying that you have money and brains and you're a superhero, then Bill Gates is a superhero. So for the most part, what was the question?
That was awesome. If you were a Microsoft Office program, which one would you be?
Excel.
Why?
Just because I like the name.
Yeah.
All right, so final question from me, and probably the hardest one was actually the entire interview. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
No, God, no. Absolutely not. Not only no, but hell no.
All right. We save that one for the end. If your answer's wrong, I hang up on you immediately.
Yeah, right. No, absolutely not. Don't even understand that. Don't even understand that. It's like, to me, it's like that first person that goes, hey, let's try eating this snail.
Yeah.
Right.
Now all the people out there will be like, how dare you not like escargot? We it is a delicacy made for only the French.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say this has been an all-out honor to have interviewed my all-time favorite voice actor. And my last question for you, Richard, is when can I look forward to seeing you at Tampa Bay Comic-Con?
That already happened, didn't it?
Yeah, just happened, but in the future.
I don't know. I'm all over the country. I don't really know until my booking manager says, here's an offer. What do you think? And so, I don't know. I don't know the answer.
I just want to thank our special guest, Richard Steven Horvitz, once again. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. Any final words for us or our audience?
Final words, yes. Serendipity, and that's UH ...
Okay, perfect. Awesome.
Well, that was awesome. That was our interview with Richard Steven Horvitz, the voice of Invader Zim, and now we have Brandon Bear, who did the interview with me, and Michael Jedediah Halstead on the line. How are you both today?
I'm doing pretty great. I have a new middle name, apparently. That's always exciting.
Brandon, how are you?
Doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Dude, wasn't that interview so much fun?
It was fantastic. He's such a great guy.
I absolutely agree. Is there a question you didn't ask that you wish you would have asked him?
No, not really. I mean, I covered most of the bases of all the interviews that I've actually watched. Try not to, repeat any questions that were in any of those conversations. So, no, not really.
Yeah, same. I kind of wish I would have touched on the Angry Beavers a little bit more, but I'm okay with that. Michael, did you enjoy the interview?
I did, and I was actually saying just before I came on the air, I was working on some other stuff for the show, so I didn't quite get 100% of it, so I'm really looking forward to the podcast format. Just a little plug for that.
Oh, yeah. We are...
And listening to the entire thing.
We are on podcast. The live episodes on Saturday are uploaded every Wednesday to anchor.fm/ComiCulture. And you can also digest on Spotify, and I believe Apple Music is coming soon, right, Michael?
It is coming soon. The last time I published a show on there, I think Apple... They like to drag things out a little bit. So I think last time it took about a week or two for them to approve, and then after that, things. So I anticipate with the next episode or shortly after, we should be on Apple Music, Spotify, and all the major podcasts.
Well, awesome. So I just want to talk to you guys a little bit about some stuff. Right now, there's been a really hot topic about, are there too many movies in the MCU? Do we get too much?
I don't think we have enough.
I mean, we're getting like 3 a year at this point, and there's no sign of slowing down. So I don't know if we're going to get burnt out anytime soon. What do you guys think?
Not really.
You know, I'm kind of inclined to go with that, but I'm also, you know, I want to see what's coming out. I will say I'm really excited for Black Widow, for the origin story pre-Iron Man 2 and seeing what that's like. I think that could be really fun. But I do, at the same time, think if we got 1 or 2 a year, it'd be fine. But I'm not feeling the fatigue yet. So as long as they're good, as long as there's variety in what they're offering, I'm willing to see where it goes.
I mean, to be fair, the amount of stinkers they have are far outweighed by the amount of hits. I mean, I can only think of 1 or 2 that I'd even consider skipping.
Maybe Thor 2.
Thor 2, the solo Hulk movie.
Iron Man 2.
I don't know. Iron Man 2 is cool. But
yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed most of them. So.
Yeah, me too.
And I really loved Endgame, actually. I thought that was a really good conclusion to Phase 3. And the only thing I'm nervous about is the whole feud between Sony and Disney and how that's going to affect the future of Spider-Man, because I feel like we just got the perfect cinematic Spider-Man, and now the whole future of that is up in the air.
I know, especially with how they left Far From Home off.
Yeah, cliffhanger.
Brandon, I want to talk to you a minute. So you and I met playing Grand Theft Auto online. It's actually a funny story. I don't think I've ever told you this, but my original plan was to grief you. But then I was like, nah, this guy sounds cool. And then we ended up being best friends. So how do you think that gaming culture has evolved in the fact that you can meet people online who live 3,000 miles away and have closer friendships with them than people that live in your own town?
You know, that's actually a very good question, because me and my friends were actually discussing that. Like, back whenever I was in high school, we would be able to play games linked through computer through, you know, little Ethernet cable. And now, since it's, you know, been broadened that you can actually talk to anybody in the world, any point in time, play with them, have a blast, get a little ticked off every once in a while from the noobs or the ones that are just better than you, and you have to admit, you know, face the fact that you suck. But hey, other than that, I mean, it's actually really cool, and it's, you know, it was really fun to be able to actually play against you in Grand Theft Auto and actually become friends.
Yeah. Speaking of people that make you mad, he's talking about me, folks.
Partly, yes. Partly. At some point, yes.
I like to grief on Brandon a lot. It's fun.
Yeah.
Something that's pretty cool, too, is just even having that as a way to connect with people that you know in person that maybe don't live around anymore, and as something where you can still do something together even though you can't see each other in person.
But
Yeah.
Yeah, you still have the communication side of it, yes.
Yeah, definitely. We only have a couple more minutes. I just wanted to touch base on a couple more things. So, what do you guys think about DC and their attempts to mimic the MCU and how it's kind of blown up in their faces?
I'll let him go first on that one.
We only have a couple minutes to go over this.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm hoping they get it together at some point, but I think that DC trying to be Marvel is not the way to go, because I've always got two very different vibes from the comics, and I think they're just kind of starting to find their footing. Wonder Woman is great. Joker looks like it will be great. So I'm hoping that they are able to do much better with the one-offs rather than the extended universe, which has not been working out well for them.
Joker looks like it's gonna be amazing. Like,
They already had critics already talking about how this should be a massive, what is that? The award. They're looking at an Oscar award for him for this because it's supposed to be the best acting of his career to this point.
That's so crazy.
That's pretty amazing.
It is, and he's been in a lot of, nominated and winning movies. He really has, and it's fantastic. He's just getting better and better with time.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been so many movies of his that I just absolutely love, and some of my favorite movies, he's at the helm, and I just can't. I know he was apprehensive about doing a superhero movie, quote unquote. Not that Joker's necessarily a superhero, but within that world, and I'm really glad that we found something that might be a good fit for him.
Yeah.
All right, final question for both of you before we get going. If you had to only watch one movie for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh man.
Yes, that's a big one. Ouch. For me, probably would be the first Boondock Saints movie. That movie was epic.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely awesome. Michael?
I think I'm going to have to go with UHS by Weird Al. That is a masterpiece.
Yeah, it was a good movie too. Definitely.
I'm going to have to go with Grind, the 2003 skateboard action adventure comedy.
Another classic.
That's a solid choice.
Michael, you've never even seen Grind.
I have. So, I actually would say probably even if it runs down to both of the first two of the Bill and Ted's amazing movies, and they're putting out a third one. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, I just want to thank Brandon and Michael. You can catch us next week on ComiCulture, Nerd Musings from the Former Fringe. Any final words for our guests today?
Well, with the Ted and Bill and Ted right there, just be excellent to each other and subscribe to the podcast.